Hello everybody, welcome again to this year's annual Cyber Symposium with the Small Business Development Center. My name is Shawn Murray. I am a cyber consultant with the Pikes Peak SBDC. We actually have a national footprint. We provide contributions out to the rest of the world. In the United States, we offer cyber content for other SBDCs, trying to build a cyber community for small businesses. One of the things that we're going to talk about today as it relates to small business are the risks and the threats associated with state actors. State actors is a term that we use to identify those countries that are trying to steal information from us. It could be our small business, it could be our large business, it could be the federal government, it could be the county government, local government. Think of all of the different types of attack vectors. Think of email, think of phishing, think of social engineering. All of these things can be combined together as a threat that is geared towards your business. What is your secret sauce? What is the information that you're trying to protect? Maybe some of you are just trying to stay relevant and stay in business and just be competitive with your competitors. One of the things that we look at when we talk about state actors is the level of influence that they have within the industry, within various industries, and within our governments. Today we're going to talk about the China threat. This is a presentation that I do every couple of years. I do an update as to where China is at with their cyber capabilities. And when I talk about cyber, cyber is information technology. Cybersecurity is the security of information technology. It's just all rebranded. We're using that sexy term cyber. When we take a look at the threat, we've been presenting it over the last few years from a perspective of comparing the United States' capabilities with that of its adversaries. So China, Iran, North Korea, China. And China has made significant contributions to their national strategy that should be considered by all types of businesses in all industries for all sizes. So, how bad is it? It's the worst it's ever been. What are they targeting? We're going to take a look at that. Who are some of the actors? We're going to actually look at some of the state-sponsored actors, and we're going to look at some of the relationships that they have with organizations. So they sponsor, such as a subcontractor, state actors. We're going to look at their national strategic initiatives, because all of this feeds into their national strategy for information dominance. What are we doing? And then, of course, we usually have some questions. We do have some folks here in our recorded audience. They may have some questions that we'll address as well. All right, how bad is it? All right, it's pretty bad. In fact, so advanced and persistent has the Chinese cyber threat become, says FBI Director Christopher Wray, that China now should be viewed as the most severe counterintelligence threat to the United States. While Russia has meddled in the past elections, Iran has been linked to cyber threats against critical infrastructure, China has been brazenly stealing U.S. intellectual property and using all of its stolen intellectual property to bolster the Chinese economic power. For now, say intelligence officials, Chinese cyber threat is now bigger than even a domestic terrorism threat. How significant is that? They are more of a threat than domestic terrorism. They're saying that they're more important than 9/11. That's pretty significant. All right, so when we take a look at some of the things that are available to us as regular citizens, I would ask you, we're going to provide these slides out to the community. I would ask you to take a look at some significant publications from the federal government. The Department of Homeland Security, CISA, and the joint CISA publications provide insight specifically into specific areas, very specific industries of where we have threats. So Joint Cybersecurity Advisory on Chinese Gas Pipeline, Intrusion campaign. It's no secret over the last 6 months, we've had ransomware on the largest distributor of fuel on the East Coast of our country. How does that impact you as a small business? Are the prices going up? Misinformation campaigns to drive prices up? How would that affect your small business? We actually have a client as part of the SBDC here in Pikes Peak region that specifically deals in fuel prices and fuel distribution. And she's had to come up with strategies on how to get fuel from other resources. Sometimes we look at things like futures. Can I set the price of my fuel for a 6-month or a 1-year period of time? Well, that takes capital to be able to secure that. And given 18 months worth of a pandemic, that might not be as easy as it was 2 years ago. Joint says cybersecurity advisory, TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures of indicated APT40 actors. That's one of the ones we're going to talk about here. State-sponsored actor from China associated with China's MSS Hainan State Security Department. One of their divisions of what we consider to be an NSA. Joint Cybersecurity Advisory, Chinese observed tactics, techniques, and procedures. What we're observing, how they're executing their strategy on offensive cyber operations. And what are they stealing? It's absolutely everything. They have the oldest and largest population in the world. And their aging population requires specific health care. One of the most significant things that they're stealing now is how to take care of their elderly population. So they're stealing healthcare information, healthcare data from our insurance companies, from our physicians, from our hospitals. They've got the largest population. Do you know that they are no longer controlling the amount of children that they can have in their country? You can have as many children as you want in China now because they're not having enough children to be able to meet their national strategic initiatives for 20 to 30 years down the road. Used to be you could only have one child. Now they're encouraging you to have many children. Mitigate Microsoft Exchange server vulnerabilities. The number one operating system, the number one largest software company in the world is Microsoft. We're going to look at a strategic initiative with China to get away from Microsoft in all of its government and business entities. They've come up with their own operating system and their own application suite. Potential for China's cyber response to heighten U.S.-China tensions. We have imposed sanctions against China. But China has two significant things that allows them to continue to be influential against the United States. Number one, they're the largest holder of U.S. debt in the world. Number two, the disparage between the trade gap between the United States and China is the most significant it has ever been. Most of our textiles, most of our consumer products are still manufactured in China. And because of that influence, they are the largest economic influence against the United States by just a whim. I'm not going to go through all of these. Chinese Ministry State-affiliated cyber threat actor activity, remote access Trojan, another attack method, People's Republic of China targeting COVID-19 research organizations. Gee, I wonder why they're doing that. Why come up with your own countermeasures and your own solutions to take care of your population if you can steal all the work that the World Health Organization and all the other countries are doing as well? Cyber actively targeting managed service providers. Managed service providers, not managed security service providers, but managed service providers. I have a client who is very influential here in our community. her and her husband have business relationships through their company throughout all levels within our community and outside of our community. A managed service provider was compromised who manages their Microsoft Office environment and managed to compromise their account and start sending social engineering specific emails to people in their network, which provided a link to a Trojan on a Microsoft shared drive for business proposals on active relationships in their business network. Because many of us in the community understand and recognize the signs associated with this type of phishing, we were able to help them identify and get back with their managed service security or their managed service provider, their IT company, to reset all of their capabilities and enable a multi-factor authentication to prevent any further infections. But managed security service providers is a different option than a managed service provider. A managed service provider is managing your IT infrastructure. A managed security service provider may be doing that plus managing the security and the risk associated with your infrastructure as well. What are they targeting? Everything. So the Chinese government, officially known as the People's Republic of China, engaged in malicious cyber activities to pursue its national interests. And we're going to talk about their national strategy to be information dominant. Malicious cyber activities attributed to the Chinese government targeted and continue to target a variety of industries and organizations in the United States, including healthcare, financial services, defense industrial base, energy, government facilities, chemical, the list goes on. Video gaming, social media, every aspect of everything that we interact with in our lives, from the devices that we use, to the applications that we use, to the products that we purchase, to our emails, to our work, faith-based organizations. They're preying on your faith, they're preying on your confidence levels, they're preying on your disabilities, they're preying on the networks that you have outside of your daily lives. COVID-19, a very specific focus within China is on COVID-19 globally. What are the contributions from the World Health Organization and all of the other mature countries that are contributing to the pandemic, either through research or through pandemic relief or how to manage things as simple as distribution of vaccinations, distributions of PPE, distributions of other logistics such as sanitizing solutions. There's been a critical upside down upset of things like soap, things like fuel that are supporting the pandemic. Adversaries, additional advisories published by CISA and other unclassified sources reveal China is conducting operations worldwide to steal intellectual property and sensitive data from critical infrastructure organizations, to include transportation of goods, logistics, including organizations involved in healthcare, pharmaceutical, research sectors working on COVID-19 response. And a lot of these healthcare organizations are diminished. They're diminished in attitude. They're diminished in capabilities. They're diminished in their demeanor because they've overworked, they're stressed, and they're cutting corners, which makes it easier for our adversaries, such as China, to get access to unauthorized access to information. Research sectors working on COVID-19 response to include the vaccination and vaccination results. Vaccination results as far as what they're tracking to be able to help, and all of those things that are counterproductive that have been able to be identified by the World Health Organization collectively. Data scientist is the #1 most sought after job in multiple industries supporting COVID-19 today. Who are some of the actors associated with the Chinese threat? So I'm going to cover 3 of them. All right, PLA, remember PLA is the term that we use for China, the People's Liberation Army, right? Home of China's cyber operations. PLA Unit 61486, AKA, also known as Putter Panda. All right, this is the People's Liberation Army unit dedicated specifically to cyber attacks on American, Japanese, and European corporations focused on satellite and communications technology. Focused on satellite and communications technology. Where is the next war going to be fought? It could be anywhere on the globe, but what assets do we use to coordinate logistics, movement of personnel, movement of supplies? We use satellites. If I can take out your satellite and I have disrupted your communications and you don't have an alternative solution on how you're going to communicate, I'm going to be able to disrupt you to the point where now I have an advantage. And if my satellites are protected, I now have a more significant advantage over you. So Unit 61486 is specifically looking at space, satellite technology for those that have founded and continue to lead technology in those areas, these Western countries. The unit is stationed in the Xiabi district of Shanghai. PLA Unit 61398, also known as APT-1. APT is also known as Advanced Persistent Threat. APT-1, also known as Comment Crew, also known as Comment Panda, GFI 89 Alpha, and Byzantine Candor. You see those names associated with this threat, they're all talking about the same actor. This unit is a military unit cover designator for the People's Liberation Army Advanced Persistent Threat Unit that's been aligned to be, alleged to be part of the source for the Chinese computer hacking attacks. This unit is stationed in Pudong, Shanghai. So this unit has over 100,000 cyber soldiers that do nothing but offensive cyber hacking 24/7, 365. This is all that they do. And they've been doing this for over a decade. The 3rd Department of the People's Liberation Army, PLA, home of China's cyber operations. 3rd PLA, APT-40, you saw this on a previous slide. The China Nexus state-sponsored actor since around 2013. Also known as Periscope, EMP, and Temp Juniper. Specifically targeted engineering, transportation, defense industrial base. So think of your industrial control systems. Think of your defense industrial base associated with ships, aircraft. Ships include submarine technology. Think of all the space technology that we're using that's embedded in many of these devices. Think of your missile defense programs. So going back to the mid-'80s, Reagan's Star Wars program. If anybody shoots a nuke, nobody's going to survive a nuke. Nobody has the ability to shoot a nuclear weapon out of the sky. We don't shoot nukes down with nukes. Therefore was the birth of Reagan's Star Wars program. So we have ship, ground-based assets, sensors, satellites that all feed into a centralized system to help a conventional weapon shoot down a nuclear warhead. They've stolen so much of that information from our defense industrial base that they've been able to develop countermeasures in missile technology that's referred to now as hyperglide. It used to be, I put a trajectory. Colorado Springs is one of them, by the way. There's a target on a map. They program the coordinates. It shoots until it's either intercepted or it hits its target. Now we have the ability to what we call hyperglide. I can now steer the bullet. Now if I'm developing countermeasures to intercept that missile that's coming in, I now have to develop countermeasures against their countermeasures to be able to intercept a steering bullet. I can no longer lock a trajectory. They've stolen that technology from our defense industrial base. All of the big companies that you can think of. Think of the Lockheeds, the Boeings, the Harris. It doesn't matter who the big dogs are. If you're a small business in our community and you're contributing in a small way, maybe a small part that you contribute to that weapon system as a subcontract to one of those primes, you're a target for China as well. And this is how it applies to you, right? So APT-40 was observed masquerading as an unmanned underwater vehicle. Some of our new submarine technology manufactured and targeting universities engaged in naval research. How many universities in the United States and abroad are engaged in military research? Think of your Georgia Techs, George Mason University. Think of all the ones on the East Coast. We can go all over it over and over again. The technologies being developed that are being presented back to the government that are being manufactured by large primes have the ability to be compromised. And if you take a look at the weapon systems and the technologies supporting defense in China today, they look very similar to the ones that we use in the defense of our own country. In December 2016, China's People Liberation Army seized a U.S. naval unmanned underwater vehicle. Now they've gained enough information on that technology to be able to develop their own products. The incident paralleled China's actions in cyberspace. Within a year, APT-40 was observed masquerading as a UUV manufacturer and trying to get additional information as we mature our program. According to FireEye, the incident was one of the many that were carried out to acquire advanced technology to support the development of Chinese naval capabilities. We believe APT-40's emphasis on maritime issues and naval technology ultimately supporting China's ambition to establish a blue water navy. All right, let's talk about their national strategic initiatives. How does this apply to a small business? It applies to every aspect of everything that we do. We as citizens, we as individuals, we as members of our church, we as members of the community within our own businesses, whether it's our business or a business that we work for. We're feeding into China's national strategy. China's Belt and Road initiatives. One Belt, One Road. 1,000 Talents program. Purchase Western tech companies to gain access to proprietary technology. If they can't steal it, they'll buy you out of it. Or they'll provide the seed money until you reach a certain maturity level. Once they steal all the tech and the information, they walk away, the company falters. They have all of the information and all the tech. Building a 15 square mile national cybersecurity center. Build and develop a military-centric space program that countermeasures all of our orbital space programs. Attain more cyber operators to address talent shortfalls because they don't have enough in the talent pipeline as well. Same problem we have in the United States. And then address national declining population concerns, some of which I just talked about. Keep in mind when we talk about these types of things, they suffer from some of the same issues that we do. We don't have enough cyber personnel or professionals in our industry to be able to combat 100,000 cyber warriors doing offensive cyber 24/7, 365. Well, as their operators age and move out of the profession, they don't have enough to feed the pipeline as well. We're going to talk about most of these. The Belt and Road Initiative. Take a look at this. According to FireEye, China's Belt and Road Initiative, their One Belt, One Road strategy, provides $1 trillion endeavor to build a land and maritime trade route, access across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, and Africa to develop a trade network that will project China's influence across a greater region. Their ability to steal transportation information over us for the last 15 years has allowed them to better understand how we move things around the globe, and they've learned how to do it more efficiently by controlling every aspect of the trade routes. And so now they want to move into a position to be able to be the preferred trade route to ship anything globally. What happens when you allow China to do that? They can disrupt anything. They can already disrupt our cyber capabilities. Now what happens if they can disrupt a preferred trade route? Because it's more efficient, more affordable, and takes less time. All right, so Middle East, Africa, develop a trade network that will project China's influence across greater regions. If you take a look here on the areas, these are the various industries that are being targeted: chemicals, telecom, high tech, transportation. All of these things, if you think about it, 5G is enabling the world to be a much smaller place than it is today. China regularly recruits university graduates and researchers in order to bring data and technology secrets back to China. They refer to this as their 1,000 Talents program, and it's very successful. What they're doing is repatriating Chinese citizens, whether they're 2 or 3 generations removed. It doesn't matter where in the world that these citizens may live. They may be a Chinese lineage person who's a United States citizen. Please come back to China. We'll pay you for all of the information that you can steal from universities, from companies. There's an initiative right now, a great economic impact to a major company. I see a Coca-Cola can sitting on a table in the room where I'm presenting right now. One of the top researchers at Coca-Cola, a U.S. citizen with a Chinese national background, has been repatriated, stolen all of the secrets associated with a national treasure such as Coca-Cola. The recipe for Coca-Cola is now in the hands of the Chinese government. And so there's less dependence now on distributing a product to the largest population on the planet, because now that they have the recipe, they can produce the same recipe with their own version. This is an example of an individual with a Chinese nexus background that was encouraged to use her position inside of a global giant, Coca-Cola, take that information, take it back to China. This is an example of the 1,000 Talents program. They're recruiting citizens from all over the globe to be able to provide that information back to China. It's one of their initiatives, right? It was established back in 2008. I was at a university doing my doctoral program, and I overheard 2 faculty members and a dean talking about 28 Chinese national citizens that wanted to do their doctoral program right here in Colorado Springs, all at the same time. And they were so excited and encouraged that it would expand their international program. But nobody was seeing the alternative to why Colorado Springs. Why would you want to send that many Chinese nationals here to this? We have 11 military installations within 50 miles, being the epicenter, here in Colorado Springs. Think of all the defense industrial-based companies that these individuals could be having access to. A lot of the doctoral program students are people who work in the defense industrial base, such as myself and others of my colleagues, including weapon systems, including federal intelligence systems, including space systems. That's a lot of access. Designed to entice overseas Chinese to come back to mainland China in order to access intellectual property. From the Chinese perspective, says the FBI director, then FBI Director Wray, just about anyone, a diplomat, an executive, a research student, a hacker for hire, or a low-level employee can become an agent involved in cyber and economic espionage. Feeding the machine. Just another strategy to support the National Strategic Initiative. Purchase Western technology. Well, if I can't steal it, how about if I just buy it? Over the last few years, Western governments and parliaments have ramped up efforts to try and limit the opportunities for companies from certain countries to buy up their most innovative firms. The United Kingdom is strengthening its laws, curtailing foreign acquisitions, as is Sweden. France, Germany, and Italy have already done so. In October of this year, the European Union's foreign direct investment screening mechanism became fully operational, but such laws against foreign purchase of Western firms may come too late. China taps into startups long before they're mature enough to be acquired. They're under the radar. They're not even being reviewed at this point in time. There's research that provides the impact, the national economic impact towards specific countries. For example, in Sweden, between 2014 and 2019, they acquired 51 Swedish firms and bought minority stakes in 14 additional ones. The acquisitions include some 100 subsidiaries. Most worrisome, in 2018, Chinese outfits, 2 of them linked to the military, bought the cutting-edge Swedish semiconductor startups. Is that a problem? When you buy these companies and you exhaust all their resources, you can shut them down so nobody else is doing anything with that technology. In 2017, Imagination, a top British chip maker, was acquired by a firm owned by a state-controlled Chinese investment outfit. Prior to the purchase, the firm bought the leading German industrial robot maker, KUKA. United Kingdom's first private 5G network is about to be launched. One of its first is Huawei, the Chinese telecommunications giant. Despite being banned by the British government from providing equipment to the country's 5G network, for the firm is jointly building and deploying 5G network. So while they put activities and actions in to prevent them from being part of the national initiative within the UK, they're still deploying the technology. In the United States, according to 2018 Reuters investigation, no fewer than 20 Silicon Valley venture capital firms have Chinese limited partners linked to Chinese government efforts. If I can't steal it, I'll buy it. If I can't buy it, I'll put it out of business. Chinese-specific national operating system by 2022. That's next year, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, their strategy was to have 20% of it deployed. This year, 50% of it deployed. The rest of it should be deployed next year. It's their own version of a Linux operating system. According to Tech Radar, Chinese government will replace all PCs that run Windows by 2022 and could instead use a Chinese-created Linux distribution such as Killian Linux. So Killian Linux is a combination of 2 companies that were combined together to produce this operating system. The order comes after the Chinese Communist Party central office and part of its drive to replace any computer that runs non-Chinese software partly in response to the U.S. government's blacklisting of Chinese hardware and NSA disclosures by Ed Snowden. That doesn't even count things that were disclosed through other issues such as Vault 7. Chinese government services has been ordered to replace 30% of Windows PC by last year, 50% this year, and the rest of them by the end of 2022. According to China Securities, as reported by MS Power User, this will mean that the 20 to 30 million PCs could end up being replaced within China. So that's Chinese government and government entities. That doesn't count the rest of China's, the companies that do business within China. Build a national cybersecurity center. They struggle with the same issues we do. They don't have enough talent to fill the pipeline. 15 square mile campus in Wuhan will serve as a school, a research lab, incubator, and a talent cultivator. The country has stolen billions of dollars in intellectual property. They've stolen so much information, they don't know what to do with it. They don't have enough people to use the information to take advantage of other aspects of technology. So what are they doing? They are building the National Cybersecurity Center in China to make themselves an increased cyber powerhouse. Since 2017, it's been building their NCC, formerly the National Cybersecurity Talent and Innovation Base. As big as its ambitions, a 15 square mile campus in Wuhan that will serve as a school, a research lab, incubator, and a talent cultivator. Sounds like another national cybersecurity center that we may be familiar with right here in our own community. Why? Chinese military faces a shortage of cyber operators and their declining population. The country's deficit of 1.4 million cybersecurity professionals weighs in on the military's ability to retain and capture new candidates to fill the pipeline. 2 of the NCC's 10 components will help address the shortage by cultivating talent. The center's leading mission is the National Cybersecurity Center School, whose first class of 1,300 students will graduate by the end of 2022. Ultimately, party policymakers hope to use and see 2,500 graduates each year, through by which remains unclear. But the idea is within the next 10 years, they want to be able to graduate at least 70,000 cyber operators in various disciplines of offensive cyber and reverse engineering capabilities. If even half of that number would still help overcome their talent gap and continue to have them stay ahead of the United States. What are we doing? Government programs. So one of the things that your Small Business Development Center does is we are also actively involved in our community. We talk to our legislators at the city level. We talk to them at the county and the state levels. We are partners in other programs. We sit on boards on other programs. Just recently, Ekta Markulia, our director, and some of our other consultants attended the annual DC fly-in with our chamber and other local county and government leaders. And we went to what's called the DC fly-in, where we go to Capitol Hill and we talk to every single one of our legislators. So each one of our congressional delegates, except for one, and both of our senators this year, every single one of them talked about how bad the Chinese threat is in every aspect of our lives. And if you don't think that it's hitting you as a small business, know that we're advocating for you. We're advocating for you as a small business. We're advocating for you as a part of the pipeline in many other areas. The economic impact, childcare, transportation, business, taxes, your ability to get products and keep the supply chain moving so that you stay viable. All of these things were discussed. Awareness. This is one of the things that we're doing to make you as a small business aware of what the threats are. Just because you think you're a small business does not mean that you're not effectively part of the terrain for a cyber actor such as China to come and target you. What is it that you do that's unique? Federal assistance. Come in, talk to the SBDC. This is one of the reasons why we communicate with our partners, one of the reasons why we stay engaged with our government, so we understand what legislation, what grants, what capabilities are out there for small businesses so that we can help you in different areas to help you with your business. Supply chain risk management. Remember, supply chain is every link in that chain from point A to point B. It could be distribution of my products, distribution of the chips manufactured in my devices, or it could be the straws and the paperware and the plastics that get me from the manufacturer all the way to my restaurant. And then have conversations. Talk to other professionals. Talk to other people in your industry. Talk to your networking events. Come talk to an SBD cyber consultant, and we'll help you develop a strategy. We'll look at what your resources are and then help you succeed. It's that point in time that I will come back and I'll ask a couple of questions within our audience. I'll repeat the question so that it'll be beneficial for the recording afterwards. Eighth Marculier, you have a question, SBDC Director.
I have so many questions based on what you presented today. What you presented today was completely, as we were saying, fascinating and scary all at the same time. We talked earlier about social media threats as well. How is China watching our social media, whether it's small business or personal use?
So one of the, we talk about this 100,000 soldiers, these cyber actors. The number one most significant threat we all know is the human. The number two I've advocated for decades is software. The vulnerabilities associated with software, because software is developed by humans. So software is all those things that run your devices, your iPhone, your Galaxy, your Xbox, your computer systems. All of these operate with an operating system and then applications or programs. Vulnerabilities associated with software allow, and to include Facebook and embedded systems, allow China, state actors like China and Russia, to take advantage of those vulnerabilities and get unauthorized access to your information. And then that information can be used against you to gain unauthorized access to your bank accounts or to your supply chain or to your network in order to meet their national initiatives. Steal your information, get you to, for ransomware, provide us with your money. Their big national initiative is to use that information for information dominance and continue to meet their strategy. Great question. Rodney Goulet from IT Firma Solutions, also an SBDC cyber consultant. What's your question, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Great presentation today. Can you tell me about that shiny pin you have on your lapel there and the awards associated with that organization that were recently given to you guys?
So on a previous slide, you see ISSA, the Information Systems Security Association. The level of confidence that our small businesses have in our cyber consultants is derived from the experience that we've achieved over many years of work and those networks that we participate in. ISSA is a nonprofit association. It's the oldest and largest nonprofit cybersecurity association in the world. I've been a member for a few decades. Some of our other consultants that are here in the room have contributed decades of time and resources. So ISSA is an international association with local chapters globally. As you continue to provide back into the network, cultivating new relationships, allowing the pipeline to be massaged and mentored, apprenticeships up into those of us that are doing this for a living professionally. you get recognized for your contributions to the industry. The pin that Rodney is referring to, last weekend I flew out to Washington, D.C., the National Harbor, and I was awarded the Distinguished Fellow for our association. 2% of the global membership is only authorized to be a Distinguished Fellow. To be recognized by my peers for the contributions over the years means a lot to me. I'm not building other people's resumes. I'm using my influence and sending vibes down to others in our profession to help our businesses, to help the community, and help fill that pipeline. Great question. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to evangelize those associations that help our small businesses by filling talent pipeline and helping us with experience.
Jonah Wish here with the U.S. National Cybersecurity Center. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Murray.
Thanks,
Wanted to see if you had any stories about how a foreign actor, or China specifically, would be interacting with small businesses at the social media level. How does that happen on an everyday basis?
Yeah, it's no secret. Great question, Jonah from the NCC, the U.S. National Cybersecurity Center here in Colorado Springs, rock star organization that contributes a lot to our community, which can be a realized benefit with the SBDC as well. Strong partnership with the Pikes Peak SBDC and the local National Cybersecurity Center. So great question. Yeah, we were just talking earlier about how Facebook, we've got an internal whistleblower that has communicated a corporate strategy to Congress. She's testifying right now and providing information on how organized crime, state actors, and other actors are using Facebook as a platform, for example, to achieve their strategies. Human trafficking, drugs. It's so much easier to use a platform to communicate between all of the entities that you need to be able to achieve whatever your strategy is, either as a criminal empire or as an international state actor. China will look at those algorithms. They will steal information. They won't disclose that they may have access to the algorithms associated with tech media giants. SolarWinds with Russia is a prime example. An APT, an advanced persistent threat, on the SolarWinds network for well over a year before it was detected by FireEye. So not disclosing its capabilities and ensuring that it can ingest all the information that it needs to meet its strategic objectives, unbeknownst to a large company, a government entity, or a small business. Think, and this is where I think it applies to small business, is if you are part of a supply chain. So I manufacture a specific component that goes into an aircraft weapon system, that goes into a prime, like a Lockheed, like Northrop. I can use that. It's a lot easier for me to compromise that small business if you're not focused on a specific cyber hygiene. How are you protecting your information? How are you protecting your network? Are you using just a regular modem from Comcast or from Lumen, and you're not got mature, detectable capabilities such as a firewall intrusion detection system or a suite of applications of security? As a small business, that's a lot of rigor that you don't normally see in a small business. And it's expensive. And you may not have the technical capabilities to maintain that, and you're not going to implement what you're not familiar with. So you're not protecting your information. A state actor like China or Russia, Iran, North Korea, or organized crime can use that information against you because you're a lot easier of a target than going after some of the bigger primes that you may have a subcontract with. Another question here, Rodney?
Yeah, that was a great answer, Dr. Murray. So speaking about our small business community, I'm looking at the latest CrowdStrike report for 2021.
CrowdStrike report,
yes,
yep.
And they say that 68% of detections from the last 3 months were not malware-based. So what would you say to the small businesses that are going to the local electronics store or downloading an antivirus, putting it on their computer and thinking that's enough and not making the investment for a professional to take care of these systems? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We don't know what we don't know. And as a small business, I may be an expert in engineering semiconductors, but I don't know all of the, it's all transparent to me how I connect to the internet, how I pass information either via email or Dropbox or something else. If I think that going out and buying antivirus and installing that on my computer is good enough, you may want to come down and talk to the SBDC. Talk to one of our many experienced cyber consultants, and we'll provide you a strategy that will help you meet the goals of protecting your information. Don't try and figure it out on your own. The SBDC is a free resource in your community to help you with your business. Everything from accounting to marketing to cybersecurity. Come down and talk to us. We have a very mature program. We'll have a better understanding. Doesn't matter what your industry is. We'll ask questions. We'll help you understand where your threats are, and we'll help you alleviate the most significant threats to your business.
Dr. Murray, I have a follow-up question. There's so much made in China. I mean, everything you buy is made in China. How does a small business know what's safe to buy and what isn't? I mean, I've been warned about USB drives.
Sure.
Like, don't get items for the SBDC made in China. For many reasons, we wouldn't do that anyways, because we're going to buy made in the United States. But how do you know what's okay to purchase?
It used to be all of the products that were textiles made in China. We were worried about lead-based paint and manufacturing with materials that could cause human health issues. Now we're talking about the supply chain associated with products that are made in China with embedded systems that have it may not be malware, but it may be equipment that is taking information off of your device and then funneling that somewhere. I reflect back on a senior engineer on a program that I used to work on. Said, hey, we have a capability to observe an event happening in outer space, and we want to implement this new technology. And so because it's going on to a government system, we've got some things that we have to do before we implement that. And so one of them is to have a review on the company. Oh, well, it's a Canadian company, and they have a field office in New Jersey. Like, okay, so our counterintelligence folks will research that. We're going to take the technology, we're going to put it in a sandbox. That's a unique term that we use into a network so that it doesn't reach out to anything else, and we're going to test it for what it's supposed to be doing. Well, it's supposed to take the feed off of a computer, create a DVI file, a video file, and place it on a laptop. Okay, great. That's a good business case for what you want to use it for. What we ended up finding out was after we investigated that company, they weren't a Canadian company. The Canadian company's address was an empty warehouse. The field office was a mailbox express in New Jersey. And when we analyzed the technology, it said, yes, create this video file, put it on the laptop, but if I'm connected to the internet, also upload this file to this IP address to a server in Dusseldorf, Germany. That's a risk to you in your small business. Does everything that you need to do, if you're research and development, do you need to be connected to the internet? Those are some of the things you need to consider. We do it for convenience, but we're trading security for our conveniences. So here's a product that's part of the pipeline that provided a great business case for, hey, as this satellite event occurs, I can create a video file that's being fed through a computer system and then put it on this laptop so I can review that file later. I don't know that somebody else has that file as well. I may not have intended that. That's an example. Well, thank you everyone for attending today's session. it applies to you. The message really is, it doesn't matter who you are, the size of your business, if you're government, nonprofit, or you're a small business here in our community doing business overseas. The idea is to understand the risks associated with how you conduct business. Remember, 80% of all your business processes are automated. We're using technology. I would ask you to come down, visit the Pikes Peak SBDC, talk to one of our cyber consultants, and let us help you better understand the risks and the threats associated with your business so we can help you be successful.